For the next step, we're going to create the elastic casing. Using a seam gauge, turn 1/4 inch to the inside of the garment and press with an iron. Next, turn casing to the inside of the garment, 1 1/4 inches, and pin in place. Stitch close to the lower fold as pictured, leaving open approximately 2 inches. So the first thing that you'll do is turn the pants wrong side out. Like that. Lay it over the edge of the narrow edge of the ironing board. 1/4 inch is the second line on the seam gauge. So 1, 2, the second line. You can measure this out completely by folding it down and measuring it, but you'll see that the serge stitch that we do is 1/4 inch. So what I do is I'll just take that serged edge. I know I did a good job serging back before. So just like I've talked about before, scaffolding, learning upon your skills, all of that, you do a good job serging, then you don't have to use the 1/4 inch measurement on the seam gauge. You can just turn that serge stitch over and press. Move the pants along the way, turn the serge stitch over, and press. If you've done a good job and you've matched everything up and you've pinned and you've taken your time to do what you need to do, then you save time on the other end. Many students will rush their way through the beginning of assignments when it comes to sewing in that foundation work, and when they get near the end, nothing matches up, they get frustrated, they have to rip everything apart and start over, and they've saved no time. Just like when you build a house or when you cook, you want to use good materials, patience, good skill. I always like to refer to making a bowl of cereal. It's so easy, but if your milk, the resource that you use in the beginning, is spoiled, the bowl of cereal is not going to be any good. Making macaroni and cheese from a box, same thing. You need milk, you need butter, and if those items are not flavorful, then no matter how well you follow the directions to make the mac and cheese, it won't taste good. So same thing when we sew. It's those foundation skills when you're starting to build three-dimensional clothing that you need to take the time and build up the pieces, so when you get to areas like creating the elastic casing, like doing what we need to do now, everything matches up. So I have turned under 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to go 1 1/4 to the inside, which means I will take the edge that I just turned under, bring it in 1 1/4 inch. Where that is on my seam gauge is 2 lines, 2 silver lines after the number 1. So I'll line that up, and my seam gauge is a little loose. Thought I grabbed a tight one, but the first place I'm going to do this is right at that intersecting seam. I'm going to make sure that the seam, this happens to be the side seam, makes the straight line and then comes along after the waistband area, the casing, and continues the seam line. I'm going to double check that it is at 1 1/4 inch, almost. And this matters, that 1 1/4 inch, because the elastic I have for you to put in that casing fits in 1 1/4 inch. And you're going to put your pin in that way. Go to your next seam and fold it down the 1 1/4 inch, and you put your pin in perpendicular. I'm matching up that seam as it comes over the fold and then continues down the pant leg. And if you find threads along the way. You can trim them. I missed this one, so let's trim it and get it out of the way. Again, bringing it down to 1.25 inches and pinning it perpendicular. I'll rotate it to the next seam and do the same thing. Bringing it down 1.25 inches, following that seam line and putting in the pin. Now that I've pinned it in all of the intersecting seams, if I did a good job keeping everything on grain, if I spent the time to match up my plaids, if I just took the time to measure the 1/4 inch, which is, you know, the width of that serge, and measured the 1 1/4, and if I have pinned these at 1/4 marks around the circumference of the waistline, which I've done, all I need to do is give it a little bit of tension, not stretch, but just kind of smooth it. Check the middle and you'll see it's at 1.25 inches. You can put your pin in and then check here in the middle and put your pin in, and your pins are going in perpendicular. As such. Your stripes are not going to match up this way because the 3 notches right here indicate that this is the back of the pant. So that needs to curve over your hips or your butt, however you want to say it. It needs to curve over. So these stripes will not match, and that's okay. Now you can just fill in some extra pins so that when you stitch it, everything is nice and neat. They should be a finger distance apart or so, with the yellow ball about a finger distance away from the edge. And we'll continue it. The hard work is done. You've matched everything up. Now it's just to make sure that that's 1.25 inches. Remember, my glasses are off, so if I miss the line, it's because of that. I am trying. I'm not sure if you guys are laughing when I laugh at myself or if it's annoying that I have a little bit of commentary going on. You guys know me well enough that if I'm not laughing at myself, it's just part of my personality. I guess I need to laugh at myself, I should say it that way. We're all human. We all make mistakes, but seeing certain areas where I can fix that mistake, I'll definitely try to fix it, but it's not always the case when my glasses aren't on. So forgive me. And these pants are almost done. If you're at this point, we are rounding the final corner for the pants. Okay, now we're moving on to the front. So same thing goes. It's a little different curve because we're going across the front. I am at, this one was a little, there. Pulling it across. You also can bring in the iron too, I forgot to say that. And press that. When you know it's at your, whoops, I knew. I knew as soon as I did that I should have checked it first. If you know you're at your 1 1/4, you can just bring that iron in and tug and bring it across. And now you've got that perfect 1 1/4. You don't have to remeasure, just stick the pins in. And like I said, my arms aren't long enough for the camera to reach the pins and whatnot. So there's that. I think I got one more section And I'm going to try the pressing again because that seemed to work quicker. There we go. There we go. And same thing. If you made a pillow for your patchwork project, remember leaving that one section open to stuff it with the fluff. Similar idea here. We're going to find the back of the pant, which, remember, the back has the 3 notches. That's only got 1 notch on the crotch seam. So the back is going to be here with the 3 notches. 1, 2, 3. So in the back, we're going to leave open about 2 inches. About. You will come over to your sewing machine. Instead of following a seam allowance this time on the needle plate, what you're going to do is, I call these the toes of the presser feet. You're going to take the fold of the waistband, which is here, and that's going to go on the inside of the left toe of your presser foot. And you will follow that all the way around. So forward 3, back 3. Oop, I got to change this to a 3. And then, you, like I said, you can sew over your pins as long as you go slowly. And I'm going over the arm of the machine. When you get to the other edge of that opening where you remove the pins, you're going to backstitch. And of course, take your pins out and trim your threads. And I'll be back in just a minute to put the elastic in.